how's it going? We usually talk about and recommend gear that we like, use, trust. This video is going to change things up. I'm going to talk about my 5 worst tactical gear purchases so you can avoid the frustration of buying something that doesn't work for you. So if you're interested, stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So we've all probably have gone through that box of holsters. You buy so many and then you end up not really using many of the holsters just because you grew into something else or something was more comfortable. But for those of you who are really obsessed with training, you probably have bought a lot of gear too that you just don't use. And I've gone through a lot of different pieces of tactical gear, belts, ear protection, holsters, mag pouches, everything. And when I first started, probably just like you guys, you hear something, you don't really do a lot of research, or you see a cool product and you just buy it right away. And so I did that when I was first starting out. So I want to share the top 5 worst purchases I made that are top of mind. Now, your mileage may vary in the sense that some of the reasons why I don't like these pieces of equipment may be reasons why you like the equipment. So this is just my experience. And again, the whole idea is to potentially help you from wasting your money and getting frustrated with a piece of gear that you buy. So in no particular order, I'm just going to start from my left to the right. First is the width of the belt. Okay, I want to talk about that. I bought a bunch of belts. I'm embarrassed to say I probably have close to 2 dozen different types of belts. Inner belts, outer belts. Again, obsessed with buying all this stuff, right? And I bought a lot of this stuff on a whim and spontaneously when I first started. And I'm talking, with belts, I'm talking about having a 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 or a 2 inch width belt. I didn't know anything. I recommend these days just buying a 1.5 inch width belt because you can use in practically every pair of pants, the belt loops. With these tactical belts, they come in, 1.25 inches, 2 inches, and those were problematic because you can't really use them with a lot of pants. And I thought that was fine because I was thinking to myself, I'm going to just be wearing tactical pants all the time, Cry Precision, whatever kind of tactical pants, and they have wide belt loops. But you'll probably realize this if you train a lot. Even people who were spec ops and used to wear all camo on regular training days, it doesn't do anything to wear camo or tactical pants. You can wear something very, very comfortable, any type of athletic pant, jeans if you want to, because you're not going to war, you're not doing anything special. So why do you have to go LARP? So I found myself not using these belts, and I don't have the 2 inch wide belt anymore. I basically just put those in storage. This is 1 3/4, but this is a purchase I regret because I had a lot of belts and I just don't use them. The inner belt and the outer belt for this particular model is a 1.25 inches. Then I have ones where are 2 inches, both the inner and outer belt, so I don't really use both. They can be used for tactical purposes when you're wearing, again, a pant that allows that through the belt loops, but that's something to consider. If you are just starting out and you haven't really gone down the rabbit hole of buying gun belts yet, I recommend just getting an 1.5 inches. You'll be able to use it across the board with any pants and any gear that you're wearing. So on this belt is a holster, and I am going to talk about this specific type of holster, not necessarily the model or the brand, which I don't even remember which brand or model this is. I think this may be for a CZ pistol, one of the first CZs I got, but I'm talking about how this rides relatively high on this belt. And I bought a bunch of these types of holsters, which I didn't realize when I first started. So imagine this holster really sits up very high, kind of like this right here on my waist. And it was really tight to the body. First is the obvious reason why these didn't really work out for me is because once I started training with a plate carrier, all of that would just get bundled up. Imagine I'm wearing a plate carrier. Sometimes it wouldn't even fit. The plate carrier would have to go over this, or there's pouches like hitting this and the pistol. It would prevent me from getting my pistol. And again, it's just all bundled up. So that is one reason why these are purchases I regret. Next was they're really not meant for tactical use. Overall, generally speaking, you don't have a holster that tight to the body, really up high, and use it for tactical purposes. They're primarily made for concealed carry. So take this tight to the body holster, okay? If I put this tight to the body holster right by my hip bone is pushing it out, so you can potentially see it. So bring that holster up a little bit up on the, on the hips and the waist can disguise it a little bit more, especially if you're wearing clothing. But, the newbie that I was, and I still see a lot of people, they come to our classes and, I can't help but laugh, but I went through it too, so don't feel bad if you fall in the same boat. We've all gone through it, all right? And, there'll be a class where somebody is doing a transition, maybe shooting their rifle, and then they transition, and it's the most awkward thing. And the same thing when they are reholstering, you'll see it's just really strange and really weird, especially if they have that holster. Some people will come to class where it's like 3 or 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock, and they're really struggling to put that holster back in. So this is another purchase that I highly regret because, one, it's not the proper use case, and it would just get in the way of my kit. Speaking of holsters, before we move on to the third product I'm going to talk about, we want to thank Vedder Holsters for bringing you today's video. If you are looking for a good concealed carry holster at a great price, make sure to check them out. They have holsters for pretty much every major make and model pistol out there. They make them quick. They're made in the USA, so make sure to check them out in the description below. Moving down the table, it's not this particular ear pro that I'm talking about, this model. There's nothing wrong with this, and it doesn't pertain to it being electronic or not electronic. But when I bought ear protection when I first started, probably just like everyone, it's all the same. And that's not true. I have a video about ear protection, and in that I mentioned that you really should invest in good ear protection. If there are 2 pieces of equipment you absolutely should spend good money on, it's to protect your eyes and to protect your ears. And most people will really skimp on the ear protection, particularly the seals here, okay? So I bought ear protection that would not completely go over my ear. And what I mean by that is these are muffs. Everyone's ear size is different, and you're going to see, different kinds of muffs. But when I bought muffs, imagine my ears, this knuckle right here, okay? Just this, we're just pretending here. You want the ear muff to cover it completely, right? In an ideal situation. If not, you need really good seals, but most lower cost, cheap ear protection do not have good seals. So now imagine this is my eardrum, this is my entire ear here. Instead of it covering the whole thing, these seals are going to be right on top of your earlobe, just basically right here on the skins, right? So you might think that's okay, and maybe it doesn't hurt your ears, the actual banging or the actual explosions in an indoor range. You might get by and you think, oh, no, there's no hearing damage being done. But there might be a slight opening in the seal, which, yes, it doesn't really hurt your ears, but over time, and if you're in that shooting range or by that person shooting a lot, then it can affect your hearing. And that's something that I really regret because I didn't really know that. I would once in a while, like, my ears are aching, things like that. I would go home from the range and then eventually realize that the seals weren't really good. So you have to look for 2 things. 1, earmuffs that completely cover your ear, completely, or find something that has an excellent seal where there's absolutely no opening. Usually those gel cups are going to be the best. They do wear faster, but they will conform to your ears and things like that and move less. So make sure you invest in good ear protection. I regret purchasing those, $70, $120 type of electronic ear protection, and just over time, I just threw them all away. All right, moving down the table, I'm actually going to skip this because this is an example of something I would buy now. But what I want to talk about is not necessarily a drop leg holster, but this attachment here, right? This is where I said mileage may vary and your application may vary. So, for some people in the military, this might be very, very important. This piece of kit right here that would ride on your thigh, okay? For civilians and even for those who are planning for the end of days, this may not even be necessary too. And this was just something that I found to be very clunky. It got in the way. It's something when it was really hot, when I was really hot and sweaty, it would just make things worse because it's this piece of plastic that's just right on top of you that doesn't breathe. And sometimes it'll push the pant leg into you. And I realized that this, I would have to buy this to get the drop leg holsters or the setup to bring this holster down. But I believe different companies, and there are different variations now where you don't necessarily have to get this. And, I see a lot of people using this, but again, is it really needed? It's just another piece of equipment that gets in the way. Instead of this, okay, so nothing wrong with, the drop leg. I use a drop leg, and it's for one particular reason. There's a lot of people, again, use drop legs for different reasons. But for me, I use a drop leg, and sometimes I'll use this right here, this elastic band, which you can attach here, right? So you don't necessarily need this big plastic on your thigh. Instead, what I like to use is just an attachment on your belt, just like this, which will allow you to bring the holster down. So you can adjust the ride height. You can buy different pieces like this. A lot of different companies make it. And so you can have this higher, lower, whatever you want. So you don't really need this big entire thing. This is very common when you're out there buying drop leg holsters. So instead of that, look for something like this, or I would recommend, unless you really need that for a specific reason. But again, if you're a civilian, I don't see why you would need it. And this here is going to feel a lot more comfortable and lighter weight. Now, going back to why I like drop leg, and sometimes we'll use this band, you'll see some videos where I have this. It's primarily just because when this is lower, and if I don't have a good pistol draw, let me just put the holster here, slide this in. And so imagine I had a gun here. Notice how if there is no elastic band here at the bottom, if I don't have a good draw or it gets locked up for whatever reason, this gets pulled up. And I didn't like that feeling. And I felt like this holster could get ripped off. So having that elastic band would keep this snug against my thigh. And that's really the only reason why I use it, right? Again, I'm not in the military or anything like that. But that is something that I would avoid these days. I'm not going to buy all this stuff which I don't need, just a small little mount that drops the holster down. And they have different heights, as I mentioned. It could be aligned with the belt, mid, low, whatever floats your boat. On to the last product here on the table, and this isn't exactly it. I'm referring to the old-fashioned battle belts, which you have a thick belt here in the back, which also didn't have an inner Velcro belt. It kind of, imagine it just had this buckle here, and it may have some kind of sticky rubber padding here, but all it would do is it would go over your waist, you would tighten it up, and the friction from kind of that rubber or that material here would kind of keep it on there. And again, it would be much thicker. I don't have it because I don't have them anymore because I got rid of them. This is kind of a hybrid, all right? This is not your typical, this is what's used a lot by guys now, kind of like this more streamlined battle belt. This was like a hybrid of that thick battle belt, but this is attached on. If I take this out, it's a traditional battle belt, kind of like this, right? So this was a hybrid. I still have a few of these, and I use them for different purposes. They're set up for different things. But I, again, would avoid ever buying those traditional thick battle belts just because, for me, they would flop around, even though they had some kind of texture here. And they just, they were really clunky. And I know there's a time and place for them, and maybe if you're just going to the range, that could work out well because you're not really going to have to worry about the stuff moving around and just kind of sits there and hangs there. But if you do want something really thick on your belt, so let me go back to this belt again. Notice how thick this is here. And then this belt starts off about the same width, but then it gets bigger here. The old, other battle belts I'm talking about, they're even thicker here. And if you want that, then that's fine. But maybe even look into something like this, a hybrid, where you can treat it as a regular battle belt. You can take off this attachment, or you can put it on if you want something wider. But for me, it was just too clunky and just never really used it. And I didn't like that. It was not secure. Like, for example, this hybrid has a Velcro inner belt, so it's going to stay on your hips and your waist no matter what. So there you guys have it, 5 of my worst tactical gear purchases that are top of mind. One just hit me right now, which I created a video. Another one, which just, just as a little bonus, it was, I created a video about this. It's the 511, not necessarily the brand. The bag is completely fine, but I probably would never purchase kind of a shoulder range bag anymore, just because in this industry, you're putting tons of gear and it's usually heavy, ammo, guns, things like that. So if you have a shoulder range bag of any kind, gosh, you're gonna be lugging that around. So I recommend just getting like a backpack or a roller, even if you're into competitive shooting. But that, that was just a bonus one because that just popped in my mind. But anyway, hopefully this video is helpful, saves you time and frustration from buying all this stuff. Again, some of this stuff may work for you, but for my needs, it just didn't work out. Anyway, guys, if you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave us some comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you guys next time.